Let's move on to something that's happened very recently, James O'Keefe, and the whole CNN story. What are your thoughts on that and how it all developed and
Well,
evolved?
there's a context here. When James O'Keefe broke the Acorn story and he came to me with that video that he produced with Hannah Giles, I told him that the mainstream media would not report that story and that the mainstream media would lie about him. And over the last year, in all the other stories that he's broken, including the Acorn story, the mainstream media lied about James O'Keefe. When he got arrested at Senator Landrew's office, the mainstream media over and over and over said that he was attempting to wiretap a senator's office. That wasn't true. It never was true. But if you ask the average person on the street about it, they think that he was trying to wiretap a senator's office because the mainstream media falsely portrayed him in a way to try and ruin him, to try and demonize him, and a way to toxify him. So when James O'Keefe went after CNN in his latest one, to me it's completely understandable, because throughout the Acorn thing, throughout the Landrew thing, and even with his other stories, they've done everything they can to falsely characterize him because they don't like him, they don't like his tactics, and they certainly don't like his politics. So I have nothing to do with how he produces these videos. I never have. He's an independent producer, and when he comes to me with the goods, I'm more than happy to advise him on the best media strategy to make the most amount of people to see it. But I was participating in Abbie Boudreau's show on CNN. So was Hannah Giles, and so were other people like Christian Hartsook and a few others. And so I had no problem with Abbie Boudreau, quite obviously. Hannah Giles had no problem. We complied. We were treated professionally. And James, according to his statement, wanted to make an example out of CNN and to mock CNN for the way that they mocked him. So it's a convoluted story. I understand his motivation. I just think that his style of work has seen better days.
Did you know he was going to be doing this? Did
No,
you know about the plan?
Not at all.
What do you think now? Now that you've seen the result of it, I mean, is this going to take away from his credibility?
Well, that's their goal. That's the goal is, and at the end of the day, he does not. In this particular instance, it's not different from what Borat or what Ali G does, and he admits that this was a punked sort of thing and that it was a script. So if people were to go through Ashton Kutcher's emails, and if they were to go through Sacha Baron Cohen's emails and said, look at the script, look how outrageous it is, I think it's an unfair standard to set for James O'Keefe.
So is he more of an entertainer than an activist?
He's a hybrid. He is an original, and I grew up as a liberal Democrat growing up, and I admired Hunter Thompson, who created his own, who broke the boundaries on what was acceptable as journalism. I grew up admiring Abbie Hoffman, who was a hybrid comic/activist. And so for people to hold James O'Keefe accountable to one genre, to one standard, when he's clearly breaking ground, I'm not going to be the one to tell him that he has to be one thing or the other. What
about on your blog, when he posted his blog in response to everything that's been happening, that he was being seduced by Abbie? And
that's his language, and I think that he's not saying seduced in terms of the sexual way. I think that what he means, and I'm only trying to interpret how I read it, is that he thinks that CNN is saying, hey, we want to interview you. We want to be fair to you. We want to give you your side of the story. When over the last year, his only interaction with CNN was them unfairly maligning him and misreporting every aspect about what he does in provable ways. I mean, we busted CNN multiple times for not telling the truth about James O'Keefe. So he thinks that, now they're playing nice with him. Now we want to do a nice interview with you. Now we want to do a nice investigation and put you in a positive light. His experience with CNN was anything but a pleasurable one. I would not have gone after Abbie Boudreau, though. She's done nothing wrong. My perception is that the media tends to be, as an organism, for lack of a better term, biased and sometimes behaves in an unacceptable and even evil way. But I like to treat every journalist as innocent until proven guilty. And Abbie Boudreau was nothing short of, professional, as was her producer, Scott Zamas. So, I just have a different opinion on it. And James O'Keefe is an independent filmmaker and an independent journalist and an independent troublemaker. And he's an adult. He gets to answer to these things, and we're allowed to have different opinions.
Do you still support his pranks?
Well, he's been successful in what he's done. His census one, which was underplayed, showed that he and a friend down in Louisiana worked for the census, and they were overpaid, as were everybody else in their grouping. And when they reported it to multiple levels of people that they were working for that were above them, they laughed when they tried to give their money back, saying, you overpaid us and you overpaid everybody else. Again, that's taxpayers' money. James O'Keefe wants to expose corruption.
How is he exposing corruption? By having sex toys out and all that stuff?
He said that he wasn't going to have sex toys. That was written by a third party. That was written by a guy by the name of Ben Widmore. He says that he had no intention of following that through. But then again, do people grant Sacha Baron Cohen for going after Ron Paul? Do they hold him to the same standard? He says he wasn't going to do it. James O'Keefe has not lied to me. I've never caught him in a lie, so I'm going to take it on face value. The place where I disagreed with him is that I thought that Abbie Boudreau was not a righteous target.
Is he going to continue now?
Of course he is. He has every right to, and I think that he'll succeed. It's arguably not even a strong bust. I know that people on the left want to make it a strong bust. I know that people in the media that don't like what he does because of his politics would like to make this ruin him and get rid of him. But the people now are in charge of determining who they want to watch on the internet. And so I think that, I think that this is a learning experience for him. And I think that he'll realize that, he needs to be, more thoughtful in these type of things.
And even conservatives now obviously are questioning him too. So he needs to have at least those supporters, because that's his backing. Usually.
Yeah, conservatives hold themselves to a higher standard, and that's always been the case. And even some conservatives didn't like what he did with the Acorn stuff, because he was, he pretended to be something that he wasn't. I think that the only way to expose certain corruption is to do things like this. So I have no problem. To this day, I still admired the groundbreaking work that Hunter Thompson and Abbie Hoffman did.
So what advice can you give James O'Keefe moving forward?
I think that he just needs to, listen to what his supporters have to say when they have a problem with, with this. Is not to be so headstrong, and to listen to people. Some people may give you good advice,
Oh, some people like...
There are people out there that are trying to reach him and tell him that he's going to be held to a higher standard, and that he should hold himself to that higher standard.